All right, in this lesson, I want to walk you through 7 ways keyframes can improve your editing. So we're going to be going over a few transitions, and the first step, of course, is to open up Premiere Pro and drag in your media. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to be using a JPEG image of a dog, but I'm going to show you how we can actually zoom in, zoom out, zoom to the right, zoom to the left of this image. You guys can use this lesson to incorporate into any slideshows that you guys are working on, or if you're working in actual video editing, you can use all of these keyframes and ways that I'm about to show you to add life to your footage within your video editing project. Okay, so I just simply drop this JPEG into my timeline so I can see it here. And the first thing you want to do is go ahead and click on the image and come up to the Effects Control tab. If you guys don't see the Effects Control tab, you can come up to Window on the top bar and make sure that Effects Control is checked and selected. All right, so the first transition that we want to go through is just simply how to zoom in using keyframes. If you're not familiar with keyframes, you guys will see on the left hand side this toggle animation icon. All right, each time we click on this toggle animation icon, whether it's for the scale, the position, rotation, etc., it's going to tell the software that at this specific spot within the clip, we want the position to be 100, and we want the position to be 2120 by 1192, and we want the scale to be at 100. If we did want to zoom up our image, could increase the scale like that and increase the position, and we're telling the software now at this point in time we want the position and the scale to look like this. All right, so for the sake of transition number 1, I'm going to be taking these keyframes and dragging them to the very beginning. And then I'm going to tell the software, well, at the end point, because I want this image to zoom, I'm going to be increasing the scale, okay? And then I'm going to take that keyframe and as it dropped automatically and drag it to the very end. So now if I watch this image, I can see that there's some motion that I've added, and you guys can see, what that's doing there on the left-hand portion of the screen. Okay, so you guys can change this, but this is a simple first way to use keyframes that we're going to cover. If you guys want it to go a little bit slower, you can change that end keyframe. Let's say we wanted to change it to 148. We can bring that to the very end. And now the animation is going to be going much slower as it zooms in. Okay, the next animation that I want to cover is how to zoom out. Okay, so the first step in order to zoom out is we need to set the first keyframe animation very zoomed in. Okay, so we're going to zoom in. Let's say we're at 158, and we're going to change the position over so that our subject is centered. We're going to highlight those keyframes again, bring them to the very first frame. And now the last keyframe we want to change is we want to change the scale so that it's slightly less. All right, so we went from 148 to 144. Let's drag that to the very end. And now as we watch this image, we can see it's slowly zooming out. All right, let's say we wanted to have the image zoom out faster and actually come back to the original size. We can click these reset parameter buttons and it will drop new keyframes into our clip that reflect the very start position of the video or photo, whatever you're working on. So I'm going to take these then and drag them to the very end, and we can watch that, and there's a much faster zoom out effect now applied to our image. Again, great for slideshows, great for promos, great for adding to photo or video. Let's go ahead and delete these 2 clips, and the next thing that we're going to be covering with the effects controls and these little toggle animation keyframe buttons are left, right. Okay, so we want to zoom up on our subject a little bit. Okay, that way we know we have space on the right side, above, below, to the left for us to actually add an animation. If we didn't do that and we wanted to add an animation, left to right, well, we would be getting this black space. Okay, so the first step is going to be zooming up on our subject there. All right, and we want this to animate and zoom to the right. So we're going to be selecting these keyframes, bringing them to the very beginning, and dropping, and come click onto the middle of the clip so we can really kind of see what we're doing and have a visual of that. And we want to change the position now to the right. Okay, so we covered zooming in, we covered zooming out. Now all we're doing is changing the position of the image, and we're going to click that keyframe again, drag it to the very end, and you can see what that did to our image. Now we added an animation from left to right, okay, that you guys can see there. Well, now if we simply wanted to reverse that, we could come in and we could, change all the parameters and delete them again. Or what I can do is I can switch these keyframes. So I can drag this keyframe past my cursor there. I can take the first two keyframes, I can drag them to the very end, and we can just simply switch these transitions. And now I have motion from right to left. Okay, so we've covered zooming in, we've covered zooming out, we've covered left to right, we've covered right to left. Now we can talk about the same thing but up and down. Okay, so we're going to be wanting to, again, zoom into our subject. We can center our subject, and then we want to leave some space at the top so that we can zoom down. Okay, so that's going to be our start position. You guys should be getting the hang of this by now. We can select the keyframes, drag them to the very beginning, and then we want to change the top bottom position. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to be dragging him down, setting my keyframe there, dragging it to the very end. And now as we play this video, you can see that we're dragging, our image is being slowly moved from the top to the bottom, right? We're doing a slow downwards transition. Okay, so that can be applied again to photo or video, and if we wanted to switch that, we could manually do it through changing the keyframes, or we can take these keyframes that we just made and we can reverse the motion of the keyframes, and now we have it starting at the bottom and panning up. Okay, so those are 6 different ways to use keyframes, and the last is to just add both. Okay, so we could not only zoom up, but we could also zoom out. Okay, so let's say we wanted to start very zoomed in. Okay, well now we're zooming up and out at the same exact time. So the 7th in this series is really just getting creative and combining a lot of these different animations that you can apply to footage. Okay, so we could even come down and we could add rotation if we wanted to by setting a keyframe for rotation and then putting it back to normal. And now we're zooming up, we're zooming out, and we're rotating. Okay, so again, getting creative with all of these different 6 transitions that I've outlined in this video is really kind of the combination of the 7th. And if you ever get lost or your footage starts to look a little wacky, we can come back to these toggle animations and unselect them, and then we can come back and press reset parameters on all of our footage, and we will be taken directly back to our starting point. All right, I hope that was helpful, and have some fun with these 7 different ways keyframes can improve your editing.